Hello and welcome back to Tachikawa. You are listening to Sakamichi Nights. My name is Matthew Boynton. I'm joined as always by Daniel Bellamy.
Hey there.
How you doing, Dan?
Pretty good.
Do you remember Seth from Old Capital Brewing?
I do, yep.
I was listening back to that episode the other day and we said that he was probably the best guest we had ever had because he brought you our pie.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think could possibly top our pie?
More than a pie.
2 pies?
Sure, or a pie and money.
How about 3 pies?
Okay.
How would you feel about a guest who brought us 3 pies?
I would say that Seth can get the hell out of here.
Sliding down the rankings.
Yeah.
So it's with great pleasure then that I would like to introduce Kif 3 Pies from Punk Doily. How you doing today, Kif?
Good, thanks, mate. Very happy with the introduction there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming to join us. There may be 1 or 2 people who are listening who don't know what Punk Doily is. So why don't we start off by explaining that? Who are you and what do you do?
All right, okay. So Punk Doily is an Australian and New Zealand style pie shop in Oyamade and Kiwambutsu, right in the middle there, which is close to GU Gold Cup. And we focus on doing sort of Australian modern baking, I guess. And we do desserts as well from our very popular lamingtons and other Australian desserts. I can see people looking at you. What the heck is a lamington?
It's like a cake covered with chocolate and then covered with shaved coconut.
Oh my God! Yes. Oh well, you needed another drink for that one. That's well done. Yes, indeed it is. But we put homemade raspberry jam in the middle of ours.
That sounds very good.
Yeah. Our chocolate dip is a little bit special too. It's not just your old run-of-the-mill, Milo with a bit of water in it and dunked in that. It's a bit more special. So that's what I mean, I guess, by the modern baking. We're a little bit more sophisticated.
Right.
Although that doesn't match up with me well, but anyway.
You use very high-quality ingredients in your pies.
Indeed we do. And I'm sure like your beers, you just, it makes all the difference in the world. Using the right hops, using the right water, stuff like that. And it's the same with our pies. When I took the approach, when I decided to make pies, I just thought, I want to see our national food, and as blokey and as workman-like as it may be, I want to see them done well. There's a lot of Australian pies out there right now. You can get it, Hanamasa and other places. I don't want to go into anything there, but and they're fine. They're great for snacks and so on. But I wanted something that better showed off what's happening in other parts of Australia for people who really are passionate about the meat pie and the where they're taking it. It's no longer a meat pie. It's for us, we're doing steak and cheese, which again not so special, but we're doing butter chicken, for example. We're using ingredients that focus on the quality of the product. So things like grass-fed beef from Tasmania, hormone-free and stuff like that, grass-fed butter from New Zealand. So that aspect, which I think brings the difference and brings the I guess the taste and the quality to what we do.
Yeah, you're really pushing the pie envelope. It's good to see.
Yeah. We like to push the envelope at Punk Doily.
How many pies would you say you eat in a week?
Me, I try to keep it down to 2 or 3. Depends on how busy we've been.
Right.
At the end of the day, if it's a sad day, I'm at least I get lots of pies to eat.
You retire to your drawing room with the pies.
Yes, exactly. And then I don't eat for another week. I eat a few. There's no doubt about that. And it's nice to be able to, I enjoy what I make. It's that simple. I don't make anything I don't want to eat. And so that's how I approach any cooking I do. I'm not a chef by trade. And, we're sort of self-taught. And, it seems to me if it tastes good to me, then I think it'll taste good to other people. Right. But, if it doesn't taste good, then why would I try to sell that? That just doesn't make sense to me. And again, I'm sure you guys are like that when it comes to beers. You
Absolutely.
Don't want to sell 4X because it's it's not.
That's your national drink.
That's our national drink, and it's like I don't know, have you heard of Foster's? Which is no one drinks Foster's in Australia, but it's like it's the drink you have with you down with your mates at the local pub. But if you want to enjoy a beer, you go somewhere that
Sure.
makes something decent,
Right.
You mentioned that you're not a trained chef, that you're self-taught. How do you teach yourself to make such good pies?
Well, when I sort of decided to do it, I actually went out and bought a professional book on pastry. There's a lot of information on YouTube and so on, and it's only gotten better since, when I started, it wasn't that great. But even then, I kind of could see that, there's a lot of people on board doing this YouTube stuff, but I really want to know the nitty-gritty of it. And again, I keep equating this to brewing, but I guess it's the same. You got to understand temperatures and safety standards and what makes a good pastry, what makes a good beer, etc. You know, to know those basics in order to make something taste good.
And I guess a lot of the YouTubers are aiming at the home cook.
Exactly.
It's fairly different doing things in a professional setting.
It is, that's right. Again, you start using different equipment. You start looking at the quality of the flour you use, for example, which sounds crazy. Flour is flour, right? But it's not really. And you start learning about protein quality, content of a flour and stuff like that. The difference between cake flour, pastry flour, bread flour, and it was a whole new world to me. But we sort of worked our way through it, and I practiced on my little flattened Nikibukuro on a little fold-out table, rolling pastry and watching it all fall apart. The filling was tasty enough, but the pastry just it just sort of crumbled as I tried to eat it. So
it's a deconstruction.
Yes, that's I should have said. Deconstructed. It wasn't a mistake. It was just deconstructed.
You mentioned that you import some of your ingredients from Australia and New Zealand, but how about Japanese ingredients? Have you found any that are particularly good for using in pies?
Absolutely. I don't import ingredients myself, but I'm just lucky enough to know the right people to get a lot of my stuff from. Or, believe it or not, Amazon, as much as I'm not a fan of the business per se, like it or not, in a country like Japan, it's the shop where you can get pretty much whatever you need, including butter, at a relatively decent price. And so I was lucky enough to have a friend who happened to be a meat importer and happened to not just import meat, but really good quality meat. And when we started out, we actually started with pork. And the reason why we made our first sausage roll was, in fact, because this pork was from Hokkaido, and it was a potato-fed pork.
Right.
And it was an incredible pork.
Right.
And so I made it with a fennel and a bit of cumin, and it was just, it was so flavoursome. And that's what made me realise that, meat isn't just meat. Product isn't just product. We started out using butter from Hokkaido, and I'm not bashing Hokkaido butter, it is good. But when I tried side by side, a teaspoon of butter from New Zealand and from Hokkaido, the difference was really obvious, just the texture, the way it melted and so on. But we use good quality. I only use Japanese pork or chicken. I don't use any imported stuff there. I think what they produce here is good. It's tasty. Japan, people love their chicken here,
right,
and their pork, so they know how to produce good quality stuff. Yeah. So I have no problem using that. Now, recent pork pie, pork sage, apple cider, and awamori apples. It's very tasty.
Sounds great.
It is. I should have bought one for you. Sorry.
You mentioned steak pies. You mentioned pork pies. You mentioned chicken. You do chicken pies?
Yeah, we absolutely do chicken pies. Yep.
Nice.
We'll be doing our Christmas pie soon, which is chicken, ham, and cranberry. Creamy, very tasty. Because we can't get turkey at the moment,
right?
Or it's just so ridiculously expensive.
Sure.
So you do what you can. Again, being in Japan, it has its idiosyncrasies, and you work with what you got. But it's amazing what you can do with what you got.
Do you do any vegetarian pies, or is that
actually
an affront?
No, it's not an affront at all. In fact, I'm hoping to go more vegetarian in future. I think given you can't ignore what's happening globally, and so I'm very mindful of that. The meat we use, for example, from Australia, animal, how to say, quality of life is important at those particular places. It sounds crazy, I know, but it is important. So vegetarian pies options are something we are looking at. At the moment, we have a ratatouille pie, which is very tasty. And I hope that we will do ones that, are more vegetarian oriented in the future.
I suppose going like fully vegan requires a whole level, another skill level, right? Like cutting out butter, pastry.
It does. You're right there. It is. You're working with different ingredients that have different melting points, and often, like for example, coconut oil is big in vegan food, but it has it can melt very quickly.
Right.
And you want it to be hard when you mix it into the flour, so it kind of creates flakiness. Usually, you're going to need some kind of mix of oils and fats and so on, and that's not always easy, particularly for vegans who can be very picky. Down to like. If you're looking at shortening, which often comes from Indonesia, and of course, you hear of a lot of rainforest loss from that. For those reasons, they won't eat products with that particular shortening in it.
Right.
So it's a bit of a minefield. It's like saying gluten-free when in fact you make your goods in the same space. For some people, that can still be a problem. Even baking a pie in the same oven that you've baked normal pies in, that can be a problem. So it's one of those areas you gotta kind of do your research and say, okay, this is vegan.
Vegetarian though is
doable.
Is
more vegetarian's more feasible. They're happy with butter, they're happy with dairy products and so on. That's not a problem. But otherwise, it can be challenging.
You have good beer and good coffee at your place as well.
Absolutely, it seems important to me to be able to offer a full experience. I guess I think that's what the reason why the craft beer industry is excelling at the moment. Even though times are hard. But I think of all the restaurants that are sort of not doing so well, but you look at the craft beer scene and it seems to be doing okay. It seems to be surviving for the most part or doing well. And I think it's because it's an experience. It's there's more mindfulness going into the product, and people appreciate that. Behavior is changing. Consumer behavior is changing, and I think that's awesome, frankly. And I just don't see the point in serving the aforementioned 4X or one of those kinds of beers with what I do. I don't think it fits. So, and I'd love to represent. I believe in Australian product. I think we do produce some world class, and New Zealand, world-class beers and ciders, and I like to have them along with my pies because I think they're a great match. So it's great to see some of those beers, being able to offer customers those beers and seeing them being really happy with them.
Yeah.
If people do want to get some of this great beer, great coffee, great pies, where can they find you?
Well, okay, so we're only open weekends because it takes all week to make everything. And we're at Oyama. We're on the 3rd floor above a church. Okay. People get confused by that because it's above a church.
So these pies really are heavenly.
Yes. And it's a stairway to heaven and all that sort of stuff. But it's a little bit. It's just out from Jiyugaoka. A lot of people aren't sure where Oyama is. It's really not that far out from places like Shibuya and Shinjuku. You can get to Jiyugaoka. It's one stop on the Oemachi-sen to Kuonbutsu, and you have about a 7-minute walk. And now we've just built a rooftop terrace. So, like so many people here, you look at the rooftops and wonder, why is there nothing up there? We decided to invest in putting some really good solid stairs up to the roof and a nice deck up there, and you can sort of sit up there, and not many tall buildings around us. So you've got this lovely view and this unfettered access to the sky, and you can sit there, munching on your pie and pint, and it's a pretty nice experience.
Chelas is also in Oyama, isn't it?
Yeah, they're right down the street from us. Yeah.
So you've got 2 good stops.
Yeah, exactly.
With good beer and good food.
That's definitely what we're. I actually talked to Renee at Chelas a lot, and we've gotten to know each other pretty quickly since they've opened, and it's nice to have that sort of thing there, because it does make it more of a destination. It makes it I'm going to go and grab a pie and cruise with a beer for a bit, then I'll wander off down and get myself a taco and another beer. And he always has, he's from San Diego, so he's always got beers from around that area, Barbaric Works and so on. And so he's always got a really good offering too, and his tacos are excellent, very tasty.
Quite the gourmet destination there.
Yeah. Oh, Yamadai.
Wow.
Yeah, who would have thought of?
Check it out.
Please do.
Well, thank you very much. That's all really fascinating. And I'm glad you can join us today. I'm especially glad because I think maybe for the first time ever on one of these podcasts, we're only almost 80 episodes in, Dan has prepared some content this week. Dan, I have no idea how to segue into this because I don't know what's coming, to be quite frank. So just take it away.
Let me ask you guys 2 questions.
Okay.
Are you ready? First off, do you like beer?
Let me think.
It's all right.
All right, I'll take it as a yes.
When I'm thirsty.
Do you like highballs?
Yes.
Yeah.
What if I told you you could combine the two into one delicious beverage?
I could have high beers.
You could have a beer ball.
A beer ball.
Okay.
Are you on board?
I'm
yes?
listening.
This is
yes.
my elevator pitch.
I'm on board your beer balls.
So, a few months ago, this came across my radar somehow. Maybe, algorithms know that I'm looking at beer stuff, and this showed up. And it was a press release from famed beer producer Suntory.
Yeah.
And they released a new product. And when I looked at the press release, the release date was yesterday. This was 2 months ago I saw this.
Okay.
And I was so fired up. And I was like, this is going to go on the podcast. So I set a Google Calendar alert, which I don't do for important things that we need to go to, something we missed just yesterday.
Yep.
But I set it for this absolutely ridiculous beverage. It was released yesterday. I called around and found out where it was being sold, and I went and picked it up. Are you ready to see this?
Strap in. Prepare for beer balls.
Here we go.
Suntory Beer Ball.
Wow.
Wow, there you go. So, yeah.
Now, they say that you can drink this. There's a couple ways you can drink it, right? You can make a beer ball with it. You can mix it with soda water. So I've brought soda water.
Okay.
I've got ice. You can also drink it straight.
Right.
They say, hey, if you want to drink this like a beer, you can.
So you can gargle balls, literally.
You can gargle. This is why we had you on, Kit. We knew you'd be good for this kind of content. But, you don't want to mix just any 3.5% beer with soda water and drink it, right? You're diluting it down way too much.
Yeah.
What kind of strength do you think? I should be clear. I don't think this is actually beer. I believe this is like a malt liquor kind of thing. It's probably a Happoshu. What kind of potency do you think they put on this thing?
15%.
Okay.
I was going to go with something like 4 or 5%.
Okay. Well, Matthew is much closer. It's 16%.
Oh, man.
Right. I've got glasses. I've got ice. I've got soda water. I think we need to do both, right? We need to make a beer ball. And we also need to drink some of it straight.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're going to celebrate it, right? This is not a review show.
Okay.
Let me just check the label. Is this actually a beer or not? It is. The Shohinmei says beer.
Wow.
So we will be celebrating this.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Strap in, everybody.
All right, we're back. So we've mixed up a beer ball, a biaboru.
Yep.
And we've also poured some straight, as nature intended.
Some shots.
Some shots of beer ball. Which should we drink first? We should do the beer ball first, because that's what it's called. That's what it's supposed to be, right?
All
right, let's give this a try.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I noticed you put that down really far from you, Matthew. It's going to be hard to drink it all the way over there.
I'll manage. Don't worry. Don't look at it. But I'll manage somehow. I have to say, it's amazing how little this tastes of anything. Right? When you first cracked the bottle open and you were pouring the shots out, I got some pretty offensive aromas. But now that we're sipping it, I don't really taste anything.
Yeah. Why do you go to a highball? You want some of that taste of whiskey, right? Don't you?
You're fed up with low balls.
I guess, yeah. But you want some kind of flavor in it. You're not drinking it to get drunk with no flavor.
Yeah. Have a little twist of lemon in there.
Sure. And this really tastes like nothing.
No, it's surprising for something that's that strong. It's just, yeah. I mean, it tastes like the soda water with almost like tea.
I would say that tasting like nothing is better than tasting bad, though.
Well, that's that.
So 1 point in its favor right now.
1 star.
It's easy to get drunk.
Was not actively offensive. Maybe things will turn in its direction when we drink it straight.
All right. Let's get into the shots then.
Kif, what's your take on it?
My take is that...
How good was it?
I'm at a loss for words. Put it that way.
I like that this, as you said, the beer ball came with a little screw cap for you to put back on, so we can pour all of this back in the bottle and send it back to Suntory with a note saying, "No thanks, not for me." I'm getting some very strong chemical flavors and aromas from this, methylated spirits or paint thinner, turpentine, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That might be for some drinkers. It's not for me.
Kip's going in again.
No, just sort of. It's like I don't know. It's like bad shot to you or something. Or
Right.
It's kind of got that sort of. Yeah, but like the cheap stuff. Well, of course, which it is, I suppose. But it's not obviously. It's not shochu. It's not anything like that. But it's just something about it. Maybe it's just the alcohol content or whatever. I don't know. It's just.
It is, yeah. You definitely taste a burning alcohol sensation, don't you? One of the reasons why you don't see a lot of beer at this strength is it's quite hard to make because the yeast doesn't like it in there when there is a lot of ethanol floating around in the solution. And it will kill the yeast, which will produce off flavors.
But what about those beers? Like I know there's a few in Australia certainly, and a few other places that have done some really like 30% and stuff like that beers. How do they get to that strength?
Very skillful fermentation management to do it well, right? And specific strains of yeast that can tolerate high alcohol levels.
The next question, obviously, is it actually worth drinking at that?
I think a lot of those beers at that alcohol level are, I don't want to say all, but I think a lot of them are very gimmicky.
Yeah.
And it's more like, we did this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, how wild is this?
Pushing the boundaries of beer making, I guess.
You're not going to go out and drink one while watching the football game on TV, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a novelty item, I think.
Yeah, well, it's like a lot of those lacto-ferment beers that seem to be very popular recently, the stouts and so on that I've seen, and a few others that are very sweet, and they call them pastry stouts and those sorts of ones. And yeah, I would actually like to use them in pastry because I think they would be superb in cakes and so on. But personally, for me to drink them, I just find them, I wouldn't mind a small, the size glass we use for the low balls or high balls or whatever that is. But something like that, that's about it. I just find them way too sweet.
They're very sweet and thick, aren't they? You wouldn't want to drink it on a hot day sitting at the beach, would you? But it's very nice to sip on slowly and to enjoy. And especially with those kind of beers, they tend to reveal more of themselves as they warm up and oxygenate as well. So you get a few different flavors as you sit there and enjoy it. Why don't we try some good beer?
In addition to this good beer.
Unless you have anything else to say about this beer ball, sorry.
I thought it was great. It was excellent. We're not going to pair it.
Would you like to pair it with something?
No, it's fine. We can move on.
Pair it with the sink, which is where we'll be heading after this.
Can you mix it with some craft beer and call it crafty balls?
Absolutely not.
No crafty balls? Oh no,
crafty balls.
I'm sad. I'm sad now.
Why don't we try?
Sorry to interrupt you.
Go
but
ahead.
It doesn't even dethrone Strong Zero as like bang for your buck for booze, right? Like a tall can. I don't know. I don't drink the crack booze anymore. But like a tall can of Strong Zero costs what, 200 yen?
Yeah.
And it's 9%, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is 16%. This bottle, which is 330 milliliters, 340 milliliters, something like that, costs 600 something.
Holy crap! Really?
Yeah. And then,
You've blown our entire podcast budget for the rest of the year.
Submitting my receipts tomorrow, clearing out the cash box.
No, can we get a refund on it?
Like I said, we just pour it all back in.
That's what it's for, I think.
Yeah, I think
Self-addressed stamped cap.
I do think it's interesting that they've released it, you said yesterday.
Yeah.
Is this highball season?
It is now.
Is it though? Like, that's a summer drink. That's what you want to be drinking in the summer on the beach,
Christmas
right?
balls?
Christmas balls.
Christmas ball season.
Baubles. It's Christmas bauble season.
Shiny Christmas balls. I don't know.
All right. Now we can move on.
Now we can move on to some good beer. This week, we're going to be drinking and celebrating some really excellent beer that I always look forward to every time it's released every year. And I have actually made in the past, and that is Baird's Smoke and Fire, which is a smoked habanero stout.
Yeah.
Extremely delicious, why don't we just dive right into it? All right, welcome back. We're getting toasty in here with some very delicious smoke and fire habanero smoked porter, smoked stout rather, smoked habanero stout. I can never remember from Bad Brewing. Anyway, it's good. Dan, what do you make of this beer?
You stole my review.
Yep.
It is good. I also always look forward to this beer. It's a great one. We've had it in every year that we've been open, and we said it before about other beers, but it does what it says on the tin. It's a smoked habanero stout. Like, it's a very tasty stout, and you get a lot of the smokiness, especially in the nose, and then up front when you drink it, and then the heat rolls in slowly afterwards. We drank Primo Diablo on the podcast a few weeks ago, which is a habanero IPA from Heretic, and a much spicier beer, like legitimately spicy. And that one, I feel like you get a lot more of the fruity flavors that habaneros have before the heat kind of rolls in. And this one is much milder in the heat, and I don't get as much of those fruity flavors as well. This is extremely well balanced, I think, for what it is.
It's interesting, talking to Americans, being Australian myself, Mexican chilies aren't such, I mean, we use chilies in a lot of cooking and so on, but they're more like the Southeast Asian and not the American sort of very varieties that you have. There's a lot out there. And when you talk of fruitiness, it's sort of not something I associate with chilies. It's heat.
Right.
So it's interesting to hear that because, it brings a whole new dimension to the beer, I guess, that previously I wouldn't have tasted or noticed if someone hadn't pointed out to me. So that's just, for me, something interesting to look at. Even cooking.
Yeah, sure.
The people talk of fruitiness of a chili or whatever. Like, okay, I'm going to look at this and look into this and the different flavors that a chili has because, it's always been about it's hot. This one's spicy. That sort of feeling, but it's not. It's
not all spiciness is the same.
Exactly.
There's flavor to the chilies, but outside of the spiciness.
Exactly. So it's interesting.
Every week when we drink one of the beers, we also like to pair it with something. But to keep it fresh, we spin the wheel of pairings to find out what category of thing we're going to be pairing it with. Of course, we can't pick the two that we had on the two most recent episodes. Which were, of course,
location and activity.
All right, so let's roll the dice and find out what we'll be pairing this beer with. Number 3, music. All right, you're enjoying a nice glass of smoke and fire. You're sitting on your beanbag chair. You've got the cans on. What are you listening to, Dan?
I would like to not go first.
If I was a metal fan, I'd be listening to something heavy and metal, but that seems like an obvious answer, so I would say I would go with something like, kicking back to the late 70s, early 80s, something like Gang of Four, Shriekback, something like that. I think would be a good beer to good band to listen to while drinking this beer.
What's the connection there? Why would that be a good match?
Because it is just, I guess the way what we've been talking about brings in that images of, I don't know if you know Shriekback at all, but they had a very sort of slightly dark, magical, mystical sort of theme to a lot of their music. So I guess that way that kicks in when you talk about the fire and fire and smoke or smoke and fire. So I guess I'm getting it from that really. But I actually do think it would match listening to that kind of music very well. It's not something I'd be drinking, getting hyped up to go out to a nightclub in Shibuya in Womb or somewhere. This would not be my choice. But
it might be difficult to cut the rug with a belly full of smoked habanero stouts, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, I think the previous balls might be the sort of thing you'd do, but I wouldn't suggest
chug some balls.
Yeah, chug some. What you're saying? Yeah. Chug some balls, but honestly, I wouldn't recommend that either. So, there's other drinks out there.
I just want to remind you, Dan, that my mother listens to the podcast. What would you be listening to?
She's no stranger. What would I be listening to? I would listen to, in honor of our current guest, Three Pies Kiff.
Midnight Oil.
Cold Chisel.
Chisel. I'm not familiar.
Yeah.
Cold Chisel. You don't know Cold.
Cold Chisel is pretty good, hey?
They're actually they really are. Jimmy Barnes, an amazing singer. he was screaming in tune before it became trendy. Well, him and the guy from AC/DC, I should remember his name, but I don't. But yeah, I don't think that was an Australian thing, but it certainly seemed like it. I guess the Who might have been the ones that sort of started out with screaming in tune. But anyway, Cold Jizzle sort of definitely were a band of the day in Australia.
Yeah.
Before In Excess and about the same time as AC/DC, really.
All right.
A couple of big tunes.
What is it about Cold Chisel that makes you want to link it with this beer?
I just thought if I said it, Kif would start talking about Cold Chisel.
Well, yeah, that's gone a long way back into my dim, dark past. They did have songs about drinking, so mind you, that's not unusual in Australian bands. So, yeah, I can see why that would be a good match, though, yeah.
What is their biggest song, then? The one that everyone knows.
The name escapes me right now. Kif, maybe you could help me out.
Cheap Wine and a 3-Day Growth, actually.
That's it. That's what I was thinking
Got
of.
my Cheap Wine and a 3-Day Growth. So,
Right.
yeah, song about drinking and, being a loser, I guess. Not a loser. I think it's sort of, they did a lot of material that sort of came on the back of the Vietnam War. And so they talked a lot about, the people coming back from that and dealing with it and that sort of thing. So, just bums basically drinking beer and got their 3-day growth and...
Yeah, I can relate.
Not engaged. You got the 3-day growth down pat, yeah.
I'm going to go in a slightly different direction. Who here enjoys the music of The Crazy World of Arthur Brown?
Nope. Never heard of it.
No? He had a song called I Am the God of Hellfire, and I bring you this song, the Hellfire song. You're both looking at me like I'm mad.
Yep.
No, but I'm curious.
Crazy World of Arthur Brown? No?
Nope, I'm curious though.
And before he performed the song, do you know what he used to do? He used to set fire to his head, and he'd be dancing around on the stage, and his head would be on fire while he was singing this song about being the god of hellfire.
Okay. Well, as long as you weren't very close and you have to smell like burning hair.
I've got to say, I think the entire venue would be pretty filled with that smell pretty quickly. He might have had a dish of something on his head that was strapped or balanced to his head that was on fire, rather than actually burning his own hair. That's the kind of act that you can't keep doing night after night.
Well, yeah, that's what I was wondering. It's like, okay, how's he doing this? He's obviously got something protecting his head because, it wouldn't be a nightly gig, would it?
I don't know if much like perfecting a recipe, you try it and, it gets better over time. I wonder if he first performed that song and people were like a middling reaction to it.
That's why
it doesn't really rock that hard considering the lyrics. And he was like, I gotta pump this up
I think it's funny if you think of it the other way around. He was performing non-Hellfire related songs, like it was just a set of ballads that he was doing whilst his head was on fire. You're like, it's close, but it's not quite there. It's not quite what I'm looking for. You got any other material?
It's a Peter, Paul, and Mary cover act with his head on fire.
3 good pairings this week. Some good music for everyone to check out there.
Yes.
Having 3 pies Kif in here reminds me that there is something else we could be celebrating alongside this beer, Dan.
Beer balls.
What do you say we dive into some pies?
Okay, better idea.
Right, well, I hope you enjoyed that 30-minute supercut of mine and Dan's chewing sounds. I'll try to remember to keep that in. Dan, what do you think of these pies?
They are excellent. Is it good.com? Yes.
Yes, it is.
Very good.
I was saying to you, Kif, just before we came back on air, that the pastry is almost my favourite thing about this, right? You just don't get pastry like this in Japan, ever. It's like flaky, but flavoursome and also rich. And it's really masterfully done. Like the filling is also incredibly delicious, but it's been a long time since I've had pastry this good, I think.
I've actually had, I don't take this the wrong way, because I know you're English, but I have had French people come in and say they really enjoyed the pastry, and which is, to me, like, if the French people, French are saying to me, you make good pastry, I'm feel pretty happy about that. Because the French know pastry. I mean, they will tell you they know pastry, and they do. They do. Don't get me wrong, UK makes lots of pies. French do good pastry.
Yes, they do pastry. That is correct.
Just say what's on your mind.
Please do.
No, I've been to France many times. It's a very beautiful country with delicious food.
Moving on. So you mentioned a couple times like Yomu Super has frozen meat pies now. I have had those, and they're quite good for frozen meat pies in a weird fringe budget supermarket in Japan. Like that's a pretty low bar to clear, but they do clear it quite well. There's nothing weird going on there. They're pretty decent, like microwave or oven ready meat pies. Considering not being able to get that in Japan for years and years and years.
Absolutely.
But they are not, they're not in the same room. They're not in the same city as your pies.
Well, I would hope so. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm really glad you said that because that would almost make me angry for people to say that. And I'm not having a go at the other pies. I mean, I've eaten plenty of those in Australia. They're petrol station. I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but they're what I call petrol station pies because in Australia you can buy a pie anywhere, including the petrol station, the gas stand, or whatever. And they're those kind of pies. And you're feeling hungry, you want a snack, you grab one. You're at home and you've been studying and you just want a quick bite to eat. You pull one out of the freezer and you do what I told you not to do when you're baking one of my pies is you throw it in the microwave and you got instant food.
Right.
And look. Some of those pies you get nowadays in Japan, they are found everywhere across Australia and at big sporting events particularly, and that's the way one particular brand is going now in Japan. I've noticed is they're hitting the sports arenas, particularly ones that have Australian sports involved or like rugby, Australian rules, etc. And that's fine, for large crowd and gathering. It's like a hot dog in America, I guess. So they're going down that route. But for me, I just wanted something that, as I said earlier, that better represented, our national food, Australia and New Zealand's national food, and that's where I was going. That was my thinking behind starting this endeavour. As I just, we can do something that's enjoyable, truly enjoyable, as good eating, not just something that, not just a snack, not just something to unthinkingly throw down your throat, but to actually sit down and enjoy.
Yep.
Unthinkingly throwing things down your throat is for the beer balls.
Yeah.
Hi, man. Thanks for listening. I was going to say that you've mentioned a few times that this is a very popular food in Australia and in New Zealand. Yeah. And, in Britain as well, we have...
Of course, yeah.
Greg's. I'm sure you're aware of Greg's.
Yes.
That world-famous eatery. Patissier. But what about the reaction from Japanese consumers? Do people know what pies are? Do you have to educate the audience to a certain extent?
Yeah, when we started out, I had curious people from the neighbourhood come upstairs and have a look at what we do and go, kore nani? And I'd have to explain and go, so desu ka. And then like, mata kondo ne. And then they're like, okay. And
then they moved house.
Yeah.
Can't see that man again.
So you had that, but on the same hand, you also had people who'd been to Australia and New Zealand and done homeschooling there, or been to language school there, or just been travelled there and loved them. They tried them, and they're like, oh yeah, I want to try that. And from there, we started getting a bit of reputation because they'd be on Instagram saying, oh look, I found this, and people started coming. And I think, as much as I'm not a keen fan of some of the pies we're getting, their marketing budgets are way bigger than mine. And, it creates an awareness of the product, so to speak. And as people get used to the product, they think, okay, well, what's this place about? Why are their pies, that crazy price? But, they're making these meat pies. I keep seeing great reviews. I want to go and try one. So I'm getting more and more people coming in and willing to try it, particularly the younger generation. But in saying that, there's a number of people who are in the older demographic who are also coming and enjoying the food. They've come in, they've gone, I'll give this a go, and then they've come back, which is really nice. And I do have people from around the neighbourhood who come on a regular basis now, and that's lovely. And they're also, learning what a sausage roll is. And I'm trying to educate them that it's not a sausage pie, it's a sausage roll. and it's not like what
It's
they
not
used
just
to.
a wiener in some pastry, right? It's different.
Yeah, it's not a wiener in pastry, and it's not surrounded by bread, and it's a thing, and it's really tasty. Try it, and again, they are slowly coming around. So it's an interesting question. It was really, from a cultural perspective, it was interesting seeing people, get used to this food and try the food and decide whether they wanted to try it or not. And I don't get angry at people who don't, because it's just, I can understand. It's like if I came and saw raw fish without understanding what it looked like on some rice, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. What's this? You haven't cooked it. But it's one of those things. You got to be a bit adventurous and try something new. And despite what people say, there have been plenty of people who have been adventurous. And lamb pie, one of my biggest sellers. And I keep having people say, "Oh, you wouldn't sell many of those." It's like, I have some people who only come for the lamb pies.
Right.
So it breaks down a lot of those sort of ideas you have about a culture.
I think often those kind of received ideas about Japan come from Japanese people themselves.
Yeah,
right?
for
We've
sure.
had people tell us, like, "Oh, you need to start serving food in here because Japanese people only drink when they're eating," and that's just not true. Right? It's just not true at all.
Yeah.
But not everyone, but a lot of people have these ideas in their heads, maybe because they've seen it on TV or because they've always known that thing to be true.
Yeah.
But it's not actually how things operate in the real world.
Yeah, exactly.
What if people can't get to your shop? Can they order? Do you ship? Is that a thing that happens?
Yeah, I am not good at sort of the internet of things. I'm terrible, so I don't have a proper online website yet. I am working on it. But people, if they want to email me or message me, I can send them out a menu, and we can ship via Kuroneko. And I have customers who buy from me from all over Japan, from Hokkaido down to Kyushu.
Okay.
We regularly order stuff online via email, and we ship out frozen goods to them. Every month or two, or depends on how fast they eat them.
How would they find your information?
Seriously, we just write Punk Doily into the search engine. It'll come up with us pretty quickly. Look out for us on Instagram or Facebook. Punk Doily, P Doily on Twitter. And send me a message, and I can at least send you my email, and from there we can get you sorted. No problem.
Great.
Figure it out. Delicious. Thank you very much.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Speaking of delicious things, Dan, do we have anything coming up in the fridge or on tap boards this week that you think people ought to know about?
We have a mixed pack of cans coming in from Duckfoot on Friday.
Exciting.
Duckfoot only very recently started coming to Japan, I think. Maybe I don't think it's this time is the first time, but it's quite recent. I'm not entirely sure where they're from. Somewhere in the States. But we have a mixed pack of their beers coming in. So there's only going to be 6 of each kind, which means they're probably going to sell pretty fast. But if you like hot new stuff, that's a hot new stuff.
Kif, duckfoot pies. Would you put duck feet in a pie?
Absolutely. Yeah, lots of gelatin in the duckfoot, so yeah. But the duckfoot sounds good. Beers in pie actually are a good thing. I mean, being English, steak and stout pie is an old classic. Steak and Guinness.
Smoke and fire would go well.
I think steak and smoke and fire would be an excellent pie. Actually, I think having tasted that now, that would be awesome.
Let's make it happen. Well, thanks for coming in today, Kif.
Thank you for having me.
A really meaty discussion. It's been very inspiring to hear a slice of life from you.
Inspiring?
Yes.
Right, okay, good.
And congratulations on your license, by the way, your brewing license.
Thank you.
That's awesome news. I'm really happy for you. And thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will pie you again next time.